Well, I actually came through UDT training on the East Coast in 1960, and we have a reunion this coming summer, and we're down to 11. So we graduated 22. If I can find a telephone booth, we'll probably buy it because we'll be able to fit in one. But even then, there were only underwater demolition teams, which are primarily in support of the amphibious force, clear the beaches for the Marines so they could land, and we're really waterborne in demolitions. They just started. 60 SEALs were formed, 50, probably about 57. They started going to basic airborne as a means to get the teams, fly them and have them jump in to meet the ships, because if there were other landings, because there were just a shortage of underwater demolition teams. In fact, when I joined, there was underwater demolition team 21 on the East Coast and 11 on the West Coast, and then they expanded to 12 and 13, and East Coast went to 21 and 22. And it was John F. Kennedy, when he was president, said he wanted an unconventional warfare capability in all the services, and that's how you end up with SEALs, which the acronym is for Sea, Air, Land. If you're an operator, it stands for sleep, eat, and live it up. But the difference, if you're an English major and you looked at the war plans and the publications, the underwater demolition teams clear the beaches up to the high water mark so the Marines can land, and SEALs go inland for doing some intel gathering, bringing out VIPs, those kind of targets. And amazingly, reading the plans, what was a primary task or mission of underwater demolition was a secondary for a SEAL, and vice versa. So eventually that's why they all ended up, now everybody's a SEAL. So there was only SEAL Team 1 on the East Coast, SEAL Team 2 on the West Coast, and SEAL Team 2 on the East Coast. Even numbers are on the East Coast and on the West Coast. Of course, now I think we're reduced now. We're only at 10 operational commands, and then DEVGRU, the outgrowth of SEAL Team 6, which is a different animal in terms of who it works for and what it does. But it's for just normal people, the terminology of underwater demolition team or SEAL team was always very confusing, because people thought in terms of a special forces team. Was it an A team, B team, or C team? So that was your number. So it would have been a lot easier for understanding if they called it SEAL Command, and people could envision, oh, there must be more to this. But at any rate, that was a confusing factor, and SEALs became probably openly announced in Vietnam. There were missions prior when the Kennedys went down to visit in Central America, and then of course the Cuba blockade. There were missions there, but the Navy really didn't know what to do with SEAL teams. I mean, it was a brand new toy. They knew what to do with the frogmen. They support the amphibious force. So when you end up with Vietnam, the Navy said, well, we have riverine forces that are opening up the river so that trade goes up into Cambodia, and deny the Viet Cong the right to move around and to bring the rubber out and all those things. So that's really when SEALs become public. And both, I mentioned the Cuba blockade. When that happened, SEAL teams from the West Coast augmented it and came to the East Coast. When Vietnam broke out, that was a longer stay, so automatically all the SEALs went to Vietnam. So the advisory groups were scattered in Vietnam and Da Nang and Na Bay and worked basically with the CIA in some operations. SEAL Team 1 was up around Saigon, and SEAL Team 2 had the Delta, which was the breadbasket of Vietnam, and just a lot easier to work around than the swamp. So that really is the first time that the Navy gets an idea of what SEALs can do, even though they weren't sure how they were going to do it. So it was kind of, they would let us run our kind of operations. We were tasked keep the VC off the rivers so that you get commercial flow, because they had to bring in ammunition ships up there. They had to bring food up there. And when I was, after Vietnam, I was at attaché in Cambodia, literally brought rice and fuel and artillery shells all the way through Vietnam up the rivers into Cambodia by river. So it proved the worth of what SEALs could do. And having been with the first group from the East Coast to go down the Delta, which the first stops that any SEALs did in the Delta, we started in where we knew the VC would cross. They would normally listen for the patrol boats, and when they heard the patrol boats leave, continue their patrols, they would cross. So we would either set up early or set up a little later, and when you get them at the crossing, and ambush them. And then, as you find out, I mean, when they're getting ready to do a crossing, they're alert and they're ready to bag you too. So we started going deeper inland, finding out where they bivouacked or where they set up and where they had their hospitals up in the trees, and nailed them there where they were in their comfort zone. So that was I guess the transition. I did the Delta, then ended up doing Three Sisters Mountains and then Seven Mountains and then down on the coast. And it was just a matter of moving around and finding a different enemy. And I'll say that SEALs went to a lot of schools when they first formed, kitchen demolitions, foreign weapons, foreign language. It just went on, and it's still that way today. You've got to keep on going. But the enlightened spirit of the Vietnam War was that we had been formed in '60, and this was in '65 was when I went over. So 5 years of fancy training. The Viet Cong had been fighting that war for 20 years. So I mean, they had it down. And I can remember going on patrol, and day one you realized what you didn't need, and before you know it, you weren't in black pajamas, although I did wear some black pajamas, but you weren't carrying all the stuff that somebody said you needed back in the States.